There was no "this meeting is being recorded." I was expecting that this meeting is being recorded. Good morning, everybody. It is Sunday, November 6th, 2022, and you are watching or listening to another edition of Forward Maryland. I am the unexpectedly slicked down Bill Woodcock.
And I am the wearing a hat because I didn't even take the time to slick the hair down, Steve Hunt.
I don't know what that would look like.
You don't want to.
There's a little.
Thank God, goodness, cell phones and social media weren't available in the 80s. That's all I'm going to say.
Nice. For people with pictures of Steve 30 plus years ago, please email too.
No. Yeah, what did Edge and Christian used to say? For those with video technology, or remember the shtick they had about the
5-second availability for those with flash technology.
Flash technology. There you go.
Flash technology. Like, what was that? A digital camera with a flash on it. Because, Steve, for a while, people had actual cameras that were digital. They just didn't do it with their phone. Their phone was for making calls. You needed to have a camera to take pictures.
What a concept.
And now it's all in one disgusting bespoke unit. Steve, how's your weekend going?
We're going good. I actually got back to the old campus yesterday, went to catch up with some friends in Newark, Delaware, and hadn't been there in a few years, pre-pandemic actually, because of, the pandemic, and saw the money that my old college is spending on athletics. They actually got to see, not from the inside, but from the outside, the Joe Flacco family weight room, which was part of a $60 million upgrade. And apparently Joe spent some of this $120 million from Baltimore on building a state-of-the-art weight room that looked pretty impressive. So quick Baltimore reference there, up in Delaware, where Flacco went to college. But good trip. Good weekend, beautiful day. Can't beat it in November when it's hitting 70 something. So how about you, Bill? How's the weekend, sir?
Hasn't been too bad. Did a lot of stuff in the backyard, watched a really good soccer match, Leeds United and Bournemouth. Leeds was down 3-1 and came back to win 4-3. So I'm a Leeds fan, so go Leeds.
There you go.
And then some afternoon of college football, and an incredible evening spent on Main Street, Ellicott City last night. Steve, imagine a place where there is like an entire street full of bars, restaurants, shops, and it's 75 degrees outside, went down to 70, and the whole place was basically open to about 100 people. It was really light down there last night and took advantage of that to the max. Went to like 3 different bars, ate and drank at each place, and it was just what the doctor ordered, so to speak.
Nice. Yeah, Main Street on a nice evening. I mean, it's scenic. It's
by the way, props go. If you have not yet been, props go. Ellicott Distilling Company. I will be back there. It was amazing. So they make the best fruit liqueurs I've had in years. I mean, not like schnapses, not like the things that you buy in the stores in the little brown bottles to mix with. I mean, these were more like brandies or like honest to goodness, liqueurs that you can drink alone. Their strawberry and blueberry were fantastic. Their orangello and limoncello are very strong. The proprietor offered a shot of a plum whiskey that he's working on, which is 120 proof. That'll change your attitude right quick in a good way. And it did me. And the best part is that, like there's a lot of places in Ellicott City, of course, the distillery, their bar area is on like the 3rd floor of an old, townhouse or built, shop or whatever it was. And then they have a deck, and then you go up, and you can go up about another equivalent of about another 3 floors, and they have another deck where one can eat and drink right on the side of the hill.
Oh,
I
wow.
mean, you could essentially, I think, crawl out of there and be on Church Street.
Hmm.
I did not go up to the upper deck because I'm going to do that another time.
Yeah,
But
paging friend of the podcast, Len Foxwell.
oh, absolutely. Whose birthday is today?
Oh, hey, Len, happy birthday,
Apparently,
bro.
per Facebook, and Facebook is never wrong.
Well, there you go.
Nor are political prognostications ever wrong. Segue. And that brings us to the topic of today's podcast, which is our best guesstimates as to the fate of the county, state, and nation come the morning of November 9th. Oh my God, the morning of November 9th, Steve. Didn't we just talk about the morning of November 9th about 6 years ago? But it's come again. So,
Yep.
Steve, I think we have decided to tackle this today by going national, state, local. What are your thoughts about the national landscape come November 9th? The shape of the House, or the face of the face of the House, the face of the Senate? Any particular races, any individual races you want to prognosticate? Share with us, please.
Sure. I'll start with the House, and we'll just kind of bounce this thing back and forth. But I think the House, there was some talk in the summer, some optimism on the part of the Democrats that maybe the Dobbs/Roe decision would tilt a few things. It seems like that has kind of faded away, and really, some, especially on the Republican side, say, oh, their momentum faded. They peaked too early. They did this. They did that. Quite frankly, all we did was went from March conditions, which had the House flipping, to summer conditions that were artificially inflated by a Supreme Court decision, to where we were effectively in March, which pretty much has the House flipping over to the Republican side. And I think that's going to happen. I think gerrymandering and the redistricting just makes it, there was just not an environment unless something really, I'm talking October surprise on steroids, would have changed that result. I don't even know. I think even Dobbs, Roe, it still would have been hard to believe that Kevin McCarthy does not get the gavel come January, which is just a sad and frightening scenario, but we'll get into that later on another podcast. But the House is going to flip. I don't think it'll flip as much as the Republicans thought. It's not going to be the 63 seat tsunami of 2010. It won't even be what the Democrats pulled in 18, which I think was
40 something.
Yeah, it's in the 40s. I don't think it's going to be that. I think they'll probably end up somewhere in the 230 range as far as total seats, which that's a net of, I guess, 20 because they're down 5. So, somewhere in that ballpark. Some interesting races to watch, I think, are the Democrats, who I think have done an outstanding job as candidates and, quite frankly, as good representatives of their district to see if they can hold on. I'm looking at, Elaine Luria in Virginia, who's on the J6 committee, Abigail Spanberger, who got redistricted into a tougher draw. Someone like Alyssa Slotkin in Michigan is another one worth watching. I think Slotkin will get carried over by the overall environment in Michigan and what's going to happen there, the gubernatorial, lieutenant governor race, things of that nature. Virginia will be interesting because there's nothing else to pull a Spanberger or a Luria over like a gubernatorial or a presidential election. They're kind of on their own. So I think those are the races to watch, those moderate, Democrats who I think have done what they needed to do for their districts to win, but the environment's just crazy. But that's where I'm looking. Bill, how about you in the House there?
Well, the House, I'm going to go fairly close to you, Steve. I'm going to go with a win with a Republican pickup of about 25 seats because I see Republicans digging a little bit deeper down into some of the battleground states, such as Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, these other states with, North Carolina. I think could be a very bad evening for some of the remaining, for example, Democratic Congress people in Texas, you know, some of the places where, you know, we have blue people or blue representatives in reddish districts, I see them going. You know, it's interesting you mentioned the Spanberger race. I keep saying I want Abigail Spanberger as my congressperson.
Oh, heck yeah.
I think she gets by this time. She's learned, she's had tough races ever since she's been in, and I think she knows how to navigate that. I think Luria gets through. I do not think anything changes in Maryland. And so sorry for the fans of Heather Mazier. I don't think she wins. I also think David Trone stays in the 6th district for, you know, Republicans out there who think that they've got a shot. But I do see where, you know, redistricting is going to help them pick up, you know, more onesies and twosies more in various states rather than just like sweep an entire state's delegation from blue to red. So that's what I see. So now on to the U.S. Senate. My take on the Senate is that we are going to have a Senate that's going to look exactly like the one we have right now. And I am going to predict, and this is going to be maybe my first bold prediction of the day. And it's interesting because we have not decided to talk about governorship. So I would also be interested to talk about governorships, or at least there's one that I'm following where I just think it's just not going to happen. But in terms of the Senate, I think Fetterman's going to hold in Pennsylvania. I think, you know, the old adage of someone who's genuine versus someone who's fake, you know, holds true. And I think Fetterman holds it. I'm sad to say I think Ron Johnson's going to get elected again in Wisconsin. It's pitiful to say, but I actually think it's going to happen. Maybe two bold predictions in one. One I don't like to bring, but one I'm pleased to bring, and both I think are necessary to bring. I think Herschel Walker is going to win. I have no idea how this is going on. It's insanity. I don't understand in general why Georgia is going more right after 2020 instead of, I would have thought they were going more blue, but I see him as pulling this out somehow. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of the echo chamber that was perpetrated by some Democrats about being in trouble in Georgia winds up, you know, adding energy to the Republican tide down there. And I think that carries him. And unfortunately, while I'm in Georgia, I think it carries Brian Kemp too. But where I see Democrats also winning, and again, this is part of that battleground, somebody who's genuine as opposed to somebody who's fake thing. I see Tim Ryan winning in Ohio. So I see JD Vance, you know, being rejected as a carpetbagger, and I see Ryan winning. I think Cortez Mastos keeps her seat. I think because again, she's also one who's had tough races every time she's been elected. I think Mark Kelly wins his seat. I think it is maybe the most toss-up gubernatorial race in the country, but I think Katie Hobbs wins in Arizona because Kari Lake is just too friggin' crazy. And I think we do see in this election cycle the end of the political star of Beto O'Rourke. I think he loses. I know I just put more out there than I asked you to handle, Steve, but I'm interested in your thoughts.
Well, I'm going to kind of bounce around here. I'll try to keep some order here, but I'm going to hit the gubernatorials.
Order? There is no such thing as order on this podcast.
There you go.
It's organized chaos.
Since you threw gubernatorial out there, I'm going to throw a couple of those out there, and I'm going to say I'm going to join you and add that not only will this be the end of the political career of Beto O'Rourke, but also Stacey Abrams, who will lose by more than she did last time. I think Abrams is I mean, I love her as an advocate. I love her as an activist. I love her as a voice in the conversation. But clearly, she's not, I don't think there's been anything about her campaign that said that she could beat Brian Kemp. She has not run the type of campaign that can beat Brian Kemp. If you follow that thing closely, I don't think she's done a good job as a campaigner. She has clung to issues that are not critical and has walked away from ones that have. She has made a number of unforced errors in debates. So I think her star also fades, along with Beto O'Rourke, who I think Beto ran a good campaign. It's just Texas ain't ready yet. So I think when you lose twice, that's just going to stick to you, even though I think it's more of a result that a Beto O'Rourke, Texas is not ready to elect a Beto O'Rourke yet. I don't think it's his fault. I think he's done everything he could do. He's done it the right way. It's just not happening there. I think Katie Hobbs will win in Arizona despite herself, because she has not run a very good campaign. Not debating was and is a titanic mistake. It just was not a good look. If she wins, it'll be in spite of herself. If she loses, she has no one else to blame but herself, because of the campaign that she's run. I don't think she's run that great of a campaign. I just think that Arizona will reject the insanity that is Kari Lake. And they will also, I believe, reject who's the Secretary of State candidate, Mark Fincham, I think is the other. So I think Arizona will say no to all those two plus Blake Masters. And so Katie Hobbs will get in spite herself. Upset alert on the gubernatorial side, Oklahoma. Oklahoma.
Where's good old JR when you need him?
Yeah, Oklahoma has gotten really interesting. I think I forget her name. The candidate there, Stitt, I think might be her name, has run an outstanding campaign and has really there's money, Republican money going into Oklahoma like you would not believe, from the RGA and other organizations to save their governor, to save that seat. So that's kind of my gubernatorial flavor. But on to the big one for the Senate. My first prediction is we won't know until December, because I think Walker will be ahead, but he won't hit 50. And I think because he doesn't hit 50 and it goes to a runoff, and he will not have Brian Kemp around to drag him over the finish line, because that's what's going to keep him closer, Brian Kemp voters who say R and another R. I think Walker isolated. I think Warnock will hold on. So I think he's going to hold on to that seat. I think you're right about Cortez Masto. I think you're right about pretty much everything else you had on that list. Ron Johnson, you're right, will win. Marco Rubio will win. Sherry Beasley, who is an outstanding candidate that not enough people talk about in North Carolina, will not pull it off there. I think Fetterman will win. And I'm with you on Ryan. I think both of those will be rejections of fake, phony, carpetbagging posers, which at the end of the day gives me a Democrat majority of the Senate with 52 seats, with Ohio and Pennsylvania flipping and everything else holding serve. So, but we won't know until December the final number, because Georgia will still be out there.
Yeah, it is interesting, because one state we didn't even talk about is Florida. Do you see anything happening there in Florida with Charlie Crist or Val Demings? I unfortunately don't.
No, I think Val Demings will not win because Florida. And I think that the gubernatorial race was lost when Florida Democrats decided to play it safe and not nominate Nikki Fried. I think Charlie Crist was just a retread, former Republican. I just, sometimes I think Democrats overall across the board have done a good job of candidates. Like the Senate candidates, I can't think of one Senate candidate that I would say, man, I don't know what those people were thinking. Fetterman's issues were that he had a stroke. Can't help that one. But he was a better candidate than Kenyatta to go after that Senate seat. But I don't think Charlie Crist was the right candidate for Florida. I think the image of him and Joe Biden standing next to each other, it just looked like here come the old, white-haired white guys, and, Ron DeSantis, for all you can say about him, and we can say a lot, is a dynamic guy. And I think the contrast just, if you watched any part of their debate, the contrast was striking. It was, Nixon, Kennedy, 1960, quite frankly. So I think that was one. And we talked about Maryland. I think that, I know there's a lot of people who love Heather Mazer. I always pronounce that wrong. I know a lot of people love her.
Rhymes with beer. That's what she always would say.
I think a lot of people love her, but I think Dave Hardin was going to be a better candidate to try to flip that seat. So if you said, Steve, give me 2 Democrat nomination oopses, those would be the 2, Florida and our Maryland 1st District. So there's my Senate. There's a little gubernatorial flavor for you, boss.
And I'm picking up what you're laying down. But yeah, I mean, so while we are, I mean, I don't know what to say about that. I think we've pretty much beat that into a formless, shapeless paste. But I think we also have an opportunity for another slightly awkward segue into Maryland races, because we have not talked about a lot of different pickups. However, I see a big pickup in the state of Maryland in the governor's race. I don't think there's any doubt that Wes Moore becomes the next governor of the state of Maryland. If Dan Cox legitimately wins this election on Tuesday, I'm leaving. I swear to God, I'm out. I'm into Delaware. Forget it. I'm not kidding. I'm in Delaware. And I'll be there by the end of the calendar year. But I don't see that happening. I see Wes Moore winning. I think the only measure is the margin. Extremely interesting ad I saw on TV yesterday, Steve, was Stuart Pittman, the incumbent Anne Arundel County executive, who's in quite a fight in Anne Arundel County, with Wes Moore and touting his endorsement by Wes Moore, which is fascinating to me because Wes Moore ain't been elected to anything yet. So very interesting there. But let's keep it at least before we go to like the local races. Statewide, I mean, this can maybe be very short. I don't see anything other than Moore, Brown, and Learman winning. I think the only thing to figure out is who's going to be the high vote getter. And I'm going to go with Brooke Learman. What do you think?
Well, I'm going to agree with you. And to your point about going to Delaware, I think the only issue here is what
former Delaware. It's got a ring to it.
Yeah, there you go. What is the margin of the gubernatorial race? Now, not only should Wes Moore, not only is he going to win, and I'm going to put it out there, if Cox breaks 40, I'll be stunned. Okay, Wes Moore will win. Wes Moore should win. And look, for those of you who say, oh, there go those 2 wacky Democrats, I think you haven't been listening to our podcast where we have been asking questions and questioning Wes Moore throughout the entire process. I don't know about you, Bill. You can speak if you want about this, but I'm going to be open and honest about it. In the Democratic primary, I looked at 4 different candidates. None of them were named Wes Moore. I had and still have questions about, is he going to ultimately prove to be up to the job? What kind of governor is he going to be? I am encouraged by the fact that his running mate, Aruna Miller, is a skilled, experienced hand who hopefully he will do the smart thing and take a lot of guidance from her because she is legit. But there are no questions on Dan Cox. Is he up to the job? No. Will he ever prove to be up to the job? No. What kind of governor will he be? A disaster. Okay. And I think that there are going to be a lot of Republicans who will have to wear the stench of the Cox Schiafinelli brand, and they will also go down. And I look forward to the day that Dan Cox goes to Fox News or Truth Social or wherever in the Donald Trump bootlicker universe he winds up after he leaves our conversation here in the state of Maryland. Same for the AG candidate, Perutka. I might be pronouncing it wrong. I personally don't care. Because of the 3, he might be the craziest of the bunch. You can't be the chief law enforcement officer if you don't believe in following the law. That kind of works hand in hand. And Anthony Brown is the right person for that job. The one race that it's not going to be as interesting as it could be is our comptroller race, where you have two experienced, qualified, well-versed. These are two legitimate candidates, by the way. I have to knock the Baltimore Sun for their headline talking about this race where it was experienced Barry Glassman versus ready on day one, Brooke Learman. Brooke Learman is ready now, okay? Baltimore Sun, shame on you for not putting enough respect on Brooke Learman's name. She is an experienced person, knows her stuff, has experience in fiscal issues, Annapolis. So that portrayal got on my nerves on the Baltimore Sun's part. But that said, that should be a decent race in any other universe where you didn't have Dan Cox at the top of the ticket. But I think that stench, despite Barry Glassman's best efforts, will stick to him and drag him down with the rest of the nut house. So I think you're right. I think it's all three. I think because Cox is up there, I think there might be some people who still throw down for Glassman. So I'm going to say that it's going to be Brown. Excuse me, not Brown. Wes Moore that gets the biggest votes amongst the Moore Miller who get the most votes amongst the Democrats. Only because I think there will be some support for Barry Glassman out there.
Steve, what also strikes me about these wide races is, again, and I've said this a number of times in other podcasts, but the short length of the coattails of Larry Hogan. Yes. The only statewide candidate I've seen Hogan campaign for is Barry Glassman. And I only saw that in a ridiculous, kind of hokey campaign commercial. He seemed, but I have seen him campaign for different, more local candidates, Delegate Reed Novotny and, in his race for the Maryland Senate. Again, this seems to be a hell of a way to kick off a presidential campaign. What exactly is the issue here with Larry Hogan?
Yeah, you're not even the big dog in your own state, and yet you're going to run for national office. I don't get it either. I think that his approach of straddling the fence and trying to have it both ways ain't going to work. We'll talk about that approach not working when we get to Howard County, but I think that's what it is. Hogan tried to figure out a way to not totally lose the Trump base that runs the Republican Party these days, while still portraying himself as this independent, bipartisan kind of guy. And we're in a political environment where you can't have it both ways, Larry. And try as you might, and I say that to the Nikki Haley's of the world and others who have national aspirations. You're out like a Liz Cheney, or you're going to go all in like a Ron DeSantis. That's it. That's all. And the approach I think makes him look weak, makes him look soft, makes him not look authentic at all. And so, I wish you well, Governor, but I don't think we'll be seeing a whole lot of you, especially back to national politics. Consider the fact there might be an announcement coming between now and Thanksgiving that the Cheeto Jesus is coming back. So
it is the third year.
Yeah. So
he will return.
Yeah. Take a seat, Larry. And even if he doesn't, you're still laying behind DeSantis. So, go do a talk show or something, find somewhere else to be, get paid to be a political analyst, but president ain't going to be it, bro.
So let's talk for a minute about any races outside of Howard County before we go to our local HOCO races. Mm-hmm. I believe that in Frederick, the Democrat Jessica Fitzwater will win the county executive there. Mm-hmm. I believe Stuart Pittman's going to lose to the absurdly crazy Jessica Hare for county executive, not because he should lose, but because Anne Arundel County seems to do that to itself. But I also see in Anne Arundel County, there's a very hotly contested Senate race there in District 33, which is a district both you and I have had an interest in the past, Steve. And there's a political newcomer named Dawn Gile who's winning. I actually think she's going to win and beat Senator Saab there, the Republican. And, I think there will be closely contested elections in D33, but I think Democrats are going to hold serve there. Are there any races outside of Howard County you want to weigh in
on? I actually am fascinated by Anne Arundel County and what's going on there. Throw Sarah Elfreth in there as well from that area. I think her race is going to get interesting. I think, is Anne Arundel County going to be our swing county? I don't know, but I think you're right. I think Pittman's in big trouble. I think some of the state legislative races are going to be very interesting. And Anne Arundel County fascinates me right now across the board. What does the delegation look like coming out of that area? And oh, by the way, those could have long-term ramifications, because with redistricting and what will be the new Congressional District 3, which I believe touches a good chunk of Anne Arundel along with Howard, that opens up a lot there. So those races fascinate me. I think it'll be interesting to see what the margin is for Angela Alsobrooks. Many people are talking about her having, maybe U.S. Senate ambitions if, Ben Cardin decides to retire and not run for re-election in 2024. So that's another interesting one. So, Anne Arundel, I think, is where the action is. I think you're right about Frederick. You got to be impressed with how Democrats continue to perform in Frederick County. You would think that would look a lot like Carroll County, but the Dems there have done, an outstanding job, county executive and across the board. So all eyes for me are on Anne Arundel County.
Well, now let's put eyes on Howard County, Steve. So I've been leading off a number of these things, so I'm going to kick this one right back. I'm going to boomerang it right back to you. Please kick us off with your soliloquy on how you predict all things Howard County in election 2022.
Okay. I don't know if I'll be up to that lead-in, Bill, but I'll do my best.
Sure you will.
Let's start with the county executive race, which I'll just put it out there. I have been extremely disappointed with this race. And I do not say that lightly, because these are two people who you and I both have known for a number of years. I would say you and I both have worked with. I know I've worked with both the Kittleman administration, the Ball administration, have had good dealings with both. And everything the 2018 race was, this one is not. I'm not, quite frankly, impressed with the campaigns run by either candidate. And we talked about this on I believe it was the last podcast. You have your Calvin Ball, everything is awesome, nothing to see here. We are this, utopia of, sunshine and rainbows and, daffodils. And you have Alan Kittleman, who, if I didn't know any better, I would think that we're just about to come apart at the seams, rampant crime. And it's just this horrible, horrible place. And you need him to fix all of these ills. And neither extreme is true. Howard County is a great place. I would not trade it for any other county in terms of where to live in the state of Maryland, maybe anywhere right now. It's a great place to get, educate your kids, to live, work, play, the whole 9 yards. And I think, between the cheese of Ball and I don't even know how to describe, I don't know, it's like, Mad Max Road Warrior type campaign of Alan Kittleman. Neither one of these campaigns will go down in the history books as an example of how to run a campaign that, makes people go, wow. Neither have been very inspirational as far as I'm concerned, but somebody has to win. And I think it's Calvin Ball. I think the environment is there for Calvin Ball to win. The numbers are what they are. If you think about what Kittleman did in 2014 to beat Courtney Watson, he's doing none of that this time around. And I don't know if this is finally the Alan Kittleman as he really is, or if somebody convinced him that this is how he had to run. I don't know which. I mean, somebody can ask the former county executive that question. But he's not running a winning campaign. I think he's turned a lot of people off. I think the people who he needs to pull over to win ain't coming. I think there are some issues that will pull some people over because Calvin Ball, there are some people who are not happy with the performance of the county executive. So will it be a big blowout? No. Last time was 5 points. I'm going to say the 5 to 7 range holds. I think that there are some votes out there for Kittleman that will come through, but there will be there'll be an exodus of those people who voted for Kittleman last time or in 2014 who will go over to the Ball side. And his ads are horrible. And John Weinstein, I mean, you're my boy, John, but yours, dude, that one was not good, my friend. So, Bill, what do you see of the county executive race? I've gone on a lot there.
I did not see John Weinstein's ad. I didn't know there was an actual TV ad. I read an email that I was sent from the Kittleman campaign with John Weinstein on it. But then again,
I think it's more of a web ad. I don't know if I've seen it on TV. I've seen it on my screen.
Even better web ads. I look at so many web ads. I hope that guy get elected in 2014. In fact, I'm pretty sure my blog got him elected. And then 4 years later, he's accusing me of threatening death to him, or wishing him dead, which was I don't understand any of that. County executive. This race sucks. It truly sucks. I'm really disappointed over the lack of a visionary, schema for the next 4 years that either of these guys have put out. Mm-hmm. Calvin, everything's not always sunny in Howard County. It's just not. And Alan, you're reminding me, you know what Alan's reminding me of, Steve? People forget that in 2008, John McCain actually led the election for a long time.
Yeah.
And two things really destroyed John McCain. One was his goof of running mate. Secondly, was when John McCain went all in on Joe the plumber.
Yeah.
And if you remember in the debates, McCain would turn to Obama and say, "But what about people like Joe the plumber? You're ignoring Joe. Why can't you talk to Joe? Joe and his people, there are millions like him, want to know." McCain went so far in on Joe the plumber, it was disturbing. Mm-hmm. And so it didn't play.
Right.
And that's what Kittleman is doing.
Yeah.
He's going all in on Joe the plumber. That there is some great well of dissatisfaction about people, and Howard County's such a crummy place. And I'm not saying, I'm just saying. And I think what we have finally seen is enough of the nonsense.
Yeah.
Enough of the BS. Enough of the Kittleman brand. I think it has run its course. Yeah. And thank God. It should have run it 30 years ago. Yeah. Should have gone with his old man. But people in this county were too willing to accept that racism and accept that trash and accept that nonsense. And yes, you heard me say it. The Kittleman name is trash. There should never be a thing named for him. He should be erased from the records of ever having served in Howard County public office. He's disgusting. His family is disgusting. His stepmother, his father, his children, they all are disgusting. They should all be eradicated. I'm done with them all. So F you, Alan Kittleman. You score 0. Not that our incumbent county executive is all the great shakes in the world. But you know what? He's the sole survivor because this race was never really joined. And you know, to the comments about I like, yeah, you know what? I've known them and I've liked them. I'm tired of it. I'm disgusted with how this campaign has been done. It is an entire disservice to the people of Howard County, and I would have expected much better. I'm completely done with the one, and I'm damn near done with the other.
So, Bill, don't be around the bush, Bill. Tell us how you really feel.
I think I've made my, yeah, I know. I'm shy. I hold back, you know, but I can't speak enough about how ruling classes in Howard County have spoiled the potential of Howard County. Mm-hmm. Now, that's a very powerful political message that regardless of what party you are, mm-hmm. I think a lot of people in this county could believe in, and I think a lot of people in this county could subscribe. But there was never that candidate in this county executive's race. We are amazingly beholden to a small number of business people in various industries, most notably land use development. You know, why are we waiting 2 years for the lakefront to be redeveloped in downtown Columbia for Johns Hopkins Medicine to get off its ass to remake it into a medical campus? You know, this storefront we heard about, the Third. Oh my God, I've heard about the Third for 3 years. All right, there was a pandemic. It was hard to get it to open. I get that. But I had understood this to be some minority business women's incubator. Right. That's what I thought it was, right?
That was the idea.
It's a sandwich shop. It's a sandwich shop. It's a cafe. And there's nothing wrong with sandwich shops and cafes, but when did that change? Who told me? Who told the community that? And, you know, I'm tired of the same people running the show here. And everybody else has to be patted on the head, sat down, and told to never mind, we know what's best for you. Columbia Association, I know you don't live in Columbia. Columbia Association's a joke. We have a totally unqualified twit of a president who never should have been appointed to the office. The woman was never even a finalist for the office that she seeks, apparently. They drew her more or less out of a hat. And all she does every 2 weeks at their meetings is fight with the board. And this is probably the second or third highest ranking or highest, you know, most powerful appointed or elected official in Howard County, next to the county executive, next to the superintendent of schools. You know, the person who wants to run Howard County needs to be the person who's willing to get all these egos in a room and say, stop the bullshit, cut it out. We used to have that in Howard County. We had county executives like Ecker, like Ullman, like Roby, who could get these assholes in a room and get them to behave and grow up. But ever since 2010 or 2014, we've had this mamby-pamby. And the government of this county is being run by the profit makers. And that's just not right. So when somebody speaks like that, come to me again about Howard County Executive. Until then, let's talk about the county council and the state legislature and everything else.
Well, Bill, I hear you. There's a lot to unpack there. Most of it I will leave to you because I can't add to any of it. But I think that going forward, I'm not confident about the answers that we will get in the future, because if the race goes the way we predicted it will, there will be open seats on both sides in 2026. And I don't know if I'm getting the warm and fuzzies about any of the possibilities out there as I look ahead to 2026. Way, way, way too early. I'm not thrilled with the answers that are coming down the pike either. So
no,
we may be hoping that somebody emerges in the next 4 years that is that person in that Ullman, Roby, Ecker vein that can stop this bus, because I'm not seeing it from the 3 to 5 people who I would say these are my folks to watch for 26.
No, for sure not.
So just to make it even worse, that you're right that we don't have much in the way of answers now. I don't know that we have them 4 years from now, as of right now. But we'll see.
Right. We have a lot of stuff to do in Howard County, and all of our stakeholders are fighting each other.
Yeah.
And we're not getting a damn thing done. And I believe that Calvin Ball has a marginally better position with which to get stuff done than Alan Kittleman would on his best day.
Mm-hmm.
And I voted for Calvin Ball, but my enthusiasm is just not there. Anyway, let's talk about some of these other races.
Let's do it. I guess I'll tee it. You want to tee this off? Or you want me to take this one?
Well, I see none of the. Well, I'll take the rest of them. I'll start.
Well, the council, I'm going to skip.
I've said a lot. I got myself fired up this morning. I didn't mean to.
Well, I would say on the council, I'm going to skip districts 2, 3, and 4, and just.
Yeah, I was going to skip all 5 of them, to be honest, because I see all of them holding serve.
Yes.
I mean, I guess the only question is who gets closer, McCurdy in District 1 or Pontius in District 5? I'm
going to say Pontius in District 5. Because
I agree.
I think Liz Walsh, and let's say this about Liz Walsh, because I can honestly say I've never been an uber fan of Liz Walsh's. I certainly don't agree with her a lot of her, let's say, not policy, but how to get from here to there. But I think it's time that everybody in Howard County start taking Liz Walsh seriously and respect the skills and the strength of one Elizabeth Walsh. She is going to win. She is going to win big, as she did in the primary. And, Bill, sometimes when you're looking at things and the numbers and the margins get to a point where it's no longer about why somebody lost, it's why somebody won. I think Liz Walsh was and is unstoppable in this race. Thinking back to the primary, I don't know what Naveen Kurtam could have done to change the result or change the outcome. Are there things she could have done better? Yeah. Different? Yeah. Would it have changed the result? Nope. And Sean McCurdy, if you look at his campaign, I think he might be making as good a play as you can against the Liz Walsh, but it ain't going to work. So, we talked about 26. If I were ranking them going, sitting here in November of 2022, Liz Walsh would be my number one ranked person for the Democratic nomination for county executive in 2026. She's got strength in one, and she's got strength outside of one. And we'll get to District 5 in a minute, because that's another area where she's got some strength as well. Liz Walsh is the real deal. And so she will win by a lot, and she will position herself to maybe make a county executive run if she wants to in 2026. In District 5, it will be closer, because I think Joan Pontius, I don't know what her policy prescriptions or opinions are on anything outside of land use and development. I don't think she's expressed one. I think this is almost a Liz Walsh 6 degrees of development campaign, but that issue lands hard on David Youngman. So it is a potent issue. I think that Youngman will hold, because District 5 is a red district. And again, I don't think Pontius has done a good enough job of speaking to other issues to where people feel like, oh, okay, I'm with her on this one issue and she's okay elsewhere. And I think Youngman, while some of that veneer has come off in terms of him being this reasonable, common sense, bipartisan, conservative kind of person, I think he'll hold on. So I just wanted to touch on those two, because I think, Pontius will get closer than people think. I think China Williams was a better candidate in 2018, but Pontius has attached herself to a more potent singular issue. So I think it'll be close. And Walsh is going to beat McCurdy by a lot. And that is a tribute and a sign of the strength of Liz Walsh now and going forward.
Oh, yeah. Well, my money, Liz Walsh jumps to the head of candidates for 2026 county executive. Yep. Both parties, bar none, should she get reelected on Tuesday. And I full well expect that. And yeah, I'll save the air. I mean, I think that Pontius will come closer to Youngman, who, again, waste of a seat. But she'll come up short because of the way that district's drawn. What other races in Howard County, Steve?
Well, my fascination is out to the west of Howard and the northeast, if my compass in my head is correct, of Montgomery County, and that's District 9. The Senate race, the House of Delegates race, I think is going to be very interesting. The Senate race, I think, will be less interesting because I think Katie Fry Hester will win and win pretty comfortably. I don't know if it'll be a massive blowout, but I think, high single digits is not unreasonable as opposed to the very slim margin she beat Gail Bates by. Reed Novotny, there's just not a there. And I think Katie Fry Hester is the best damn legislator we have in Howard County right now. I can't think of anybody, you can maybe make a case for a Vanessa Atterbury who has been killing it since day one. That's the only other person I could say has really been up to the standard that Katie Fry Hester has set already. And I think that the people in District 9 will appreciate that. And with no Carroll County to prop up a Republican candidate, I just don't see, certainly not Reed Novotny. I don't see him getting there. The 9A race is going to be interesting because to me, it is, I've talked about this before, the power of the Asian American voting bloc in Howard County. I mean, you look at some results in the last few cycles, Chow Wu in 2018, Yun Liu in 2020, this primary, and also Board of Ed, where you saw, we see Jenny Zhang on the Republican side, along with the aforementioned Trent Kittleman. And on the other side, Dr. Chow Wu with and also Jenny Zhang is also a doctor. So let me give them both their props. But Dr. Chow Wu along with Natalie Ziegler. I don't know which way this is going to go. I could very easily see a split ticket with Dr. Wu and Dr. Zhang actually getting those seats. It will be a matter of, does the Kittleman name still carry some weight out in that part of the county? I think he'll win, councilman at District 5. Is the margin big enough to bring his stepmother to such a point that the Montgomery County area doesn't count? But there's certainly going to be a lot of action between Zhang and Wu. I think Ziegler also, who was number 2 last time around in Howard County behind Trent Kittleman, I think she's going to carry some weight as well. I don't honestly know which way that race is going to go. If I had to predict, it's hard. It really is. I can see it going so many different ways, but that is the race to watch, in my opinion, is the 9A race. It could go one of several ways. I could see Kittleman Zhang. I could see Ziegler Wu. I could see Zhang Wu. I could see Kittleman Ziegler, quite frankly. If you put a gun in my head and said make a pick, I'd say Kittleman Ziegler. But man, you can not worry about the rest of them except for Board of Ed and 9A, quite frankly, on Tuesday night if you're in Howard County.
Yeah, I mean, 12 and 13 are fait accompli. 9B is a fait accompli.
Yeah.
Courtney Watson should retire that individual running against her. It's just nonsense.
Yeah.
9A, I mean, and Hester should definitely win Senate 9. Thank you to being in the new district, and also thank you to Katie Fry Hester running a hell of a campaign and being a hell of an effective state senator in her first 4 years in office. I'm going to go Kittleman Ziegler. for 9A. I agree with you. Any permutation of the 4 could pop up. I do not want to downplay the importance and the power of the Chinese American voting bloc in Howard County. I do believe it'll carry Lim-Fing Chen to one of those 2 seats in the Board of Ed. But I don't think it's time for that block yet. I don't think that they have covered and cornered enough of District 9. I think it will be close. I think it'll be a very close race. But I do believe that the name of Kittleman has enough Western Howard County cachet that I think they'll go for her one more time. And Natalie Ziegler's run a very hard, very competitive, really never stopped running other than for the pandemic since she came so close in 2018. And I think she's going to be rewarded for that. That said, could that change? It surely could. But if I had to guess right now, and I do, that's where I'd go.
Yeah, I can see that, and like I said, if you said Steve, make a pick right now, that's where I would go is Ziegler Kittleman. Ziegler is, I think District 9A will be very fortunate to have her as their delegate. I think of the 4 of them, the one that I don't question in terms of how well they will serve in office is Natalie Ziegler. I think she will be great at representing that district, and I think much like District 9 grew to feel really good about being represented by Katie Fry Hester in the Senate, 9A will feel really good about being represented by Natalie Ziegler in the House of Delegates. I think if Kittleman wins, it'll be more of the same. And, if you're in 9A, just call Natalie Ziegler's office if you want something done, because it ain't going to get done if you call Trent Kittleman's office, if she even has one. Right. And I just don't know. I think Chow Wu's been an outstanding member of the Board of Ed. I think he's done a really good job there. I think he would eventually get there and be very good in the House of Delegates. He's a really bright guy. I don't know enough about Jenny Zhang to know what kind of delegate she would be, so I really can't speak to her. But Ziegler's the real deal. And you touched on the Board of Ed just very quickly. The thing I will say about the Board of Ed is, there's been a lot of talk about whether or not it's still or not a nonpartisan race. And, has it gone partisan or not? And you get defenders either way. And I've come to this, Bill, and I want to get your thoughts just very quickly on that, because I know we're really coming up against the time here. I don't know. You could still argue whether or not that Board of Ed race has become nonpartisan. I don't think we could argue any longer that it's become that it's no longer non-ideological. So if you want to throw partisan and say, well, there are no Democratic candidates or Republican candidates, that's one thing. But you cannot make an argument. I don't think anybody can make an argument that I would buy that ideology is not a thing. And you can attach ideology with party and go there. But you have in this Board of Ed race a very binary choice. You have 2 people who are clearly to the left of center ideologically, in one case, way left. And you have 2 people who are to the right of center ideologically, one who is way right. So on one side, you've got Neuberger and McCoy. And if you look at all the different issues, they're in lockstep. Hell, they're basically running as a slate at this point. I mean, they've really just taken that away, and they're not even denying it. And on the other side, you have, Chen and Adler, who are definitely to the right. And I know last time I said that, a Chen supporter came on our YouTube channel and said, no, he's nonpartisan and he's all about the kids and their best education. You know what? Spare me. Anybody running for Board of Ed, I don't think you have a person running for Board of Ed that doesn't care about the kids and their education. They all do. Whether I agree with them or not, I think they all come from that place. There's just a differing opinion of how to get from here to there. And the only difference between Lim-Fing Chen and Tootie Adler is, if nothing else, Tootie Adler is open and honest about who she is, and what she would do on the Board of Ed, whereas Chen has been hiding behind platitudes and slogans so he could pick up enough independent and moderate Dem votes to get him over the top. And it just might work. I think Adler, beyond the Cox extreme, Trump extreme, she's not getting a lot of action. So I think you can eliminate her immediately. Chen, I think there is something there that he might be able to find his way in that top two. I can't decide who it would cost. I think it would cost Neuberger, but it could go either way between Neuberger and McCoy. They've got a solid block of Dems. I think it's that independent middle voter that might split in some ways that might not let that slate make it all the way home. So that's my quick on the Board of Ed. I think you've got a good call there on Dr. Chen. If I were making a call, I'd say McCoy Chen on the Board of Ed come December when it's swearing in time.
Again, I'll keep it short. I think you're right. I think it's McCoy Chen, and I'm not going to go back into all the reasons why I think it will be. I just think it's McCoy Chen. Before we sign off, I want to make clear my comments about Mr. Kittleman and his campaign. I have nothing here against Alan Kittleman as a human being or as a person. I will just say that I used to like the man. I just have lost respect for the man. I just don't like him. And that's that. I don't wish him ill. I don't wish his family ill. But what I am disgusted about, not just as, yeah, I'm a Democrat. Yeah, I've been a party activist in the past. I was 10 years on the Democratic Central Committee. I ran against his father a lifetime ago for the House of Delegates. And what I have seen up close over 25 years of being involved in politics in Howard County, parallel to the Kittleman name, is leadership of the Republican Party, not just in Howard County, but in the state of Maryland. And it has been the brand of leadership and espousing the type of values-driven, culture war-driven conservatism that has given rise to people like Dan Cox, Gordana Schiafinelli, Mike Peroutka, and ultimately Donald Trump. And what I resent with great zest is the denial that goes on from Alan Kittleman and people of his ilk that they were ever part of it. They weren't just part of it. They lived off it. They profited off of it. They got elected off of it. And they served in the legislature, in the council, and in the county executive's office, and in the state, because of it. So that is what I resent. That is what I hate. That is what I've lost respect for. I don't have hate or any personal animus towards that man or his family, and I apologize for anything I had said that may come across as otherwise. But I do hate what this man has helped the Republican Party in the state of Maryland become. Because if you talk to many Republicans in the state of Maryland, they still give Alan Kittleman and his father a lot of credit for making the Republican Party in Maryland what it is. So if you like Andy Harris, if you like Peroutka, if you like Dan Cox, there's your guy. And don't let him tell you any different, because that's your guy. I don't. I'm disgusted by what that represents. I wish we could just have arguments with Republicans based about taxation, size of government, role of government. I wish we could have that. And the Kittlemans, take the conservative view on those arguments, and that's okay. But every single bit of this culture war of demeaning people who are in opposition to their way of view, to their way of life, to their viewpoint, making people like me, like you, Steve, like a lot of people out there watching and listening to this podcast, saying, portraying those people as less than, that's how they trade. Yes, I have shaken hands and had many a nice, decent chat with Alan Kittleman. Of course. That doesn't ever stop him from saying, but Democrats still suck. And that's part of what's wrong with our politics. That's a large part of what's wrong with our politics.
Well, yeah.
So I'm that I want to clarify that, because I don't want this podcast coming out later on today and saying, oh, people are threatening Alan Kittleman, blah, 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 blah. I don't want to be any part of any last minute nonsense, but it needs to be made clear, that this man, if you like the modern version of the Republican Party, thank Alan. Vote for Alan. But Alan Kittleman's version of Howard County, Maryland, and America ain't mine. Full stop.
Well, Bill, it's something Joe Biden said recently, and he has said it a number of times about today's Republican Party. Silence is complicit. Being silent is being complicit, but so are winks and nods. And, two Republicans that I think they're still Republicans that I'd say, I don't necessarily admire, but I appreciate the honesty are, Joe Walsh, who was a very, very, very far right conservative member of Congress of Illinois, for those who aren't familiar with Joe Walsh, and former Lieutenant Governor Michael Steele, who ran the GOP, both of whom have owned up to the fact that they were part of creating this monster. Joe Walsh will tell you on wherever you hear Joe Walsh on Twitter or anywhere else, hey, the reason I'm trying to destroy this thing is because I helped build it. And I have now seen the damage of that which I built, and now I need to take the sucker down. You can appreciate, or Liz Cheney, who has said, look, this monster needs to be slayed. We could get back to the rest of it later. I don't agree with these Democrats, but there's a bigger threat out there that needs to be taken out. Her, Adam Kinzinger, there are others out there I'm sure I'm not naming. I can at least appreciate the fact that you have these folks owning up to what they helped build and are saying, I did it, but I'm going to at least try to own up to this by taking it down. And you have a lot of winks and nods and, Republican luminaries who are flowing down to Georgia to stand next to Herschel Walker, even though they know good and damn well that man has no place in the United States Senate. So you're right. When you make the point about, some of these folks who are responsible for building what we're looking at today, and then they're like, oh, nope, that's not me. Yeah, it was you. You either helped build it or you stood silently to the side and watched it organically grow into what it is today. So you're right. You either have to come out swinging and say, nah, man, I'm just not, this just ain't my kind of party. Or you're going to do what Alan Kittleman does and wink and nod. And I love your Joe the Plumber reference. His Joe the Plumber is a school mom that's afraid to send her kids to school because there are no SROs. And I would like to say to that school mom, and then I'll be done, Bill, I promise. I have kids in the school system. My fear is not SROs or no SROs. My fear are gun laws that allow a kid who's having a bad day to go to a gun shop at 8 a.m. in the morning, get an AR-15, a couple hundred rounds of artillery and a high capacity clip, and at 11 o'clock during lunch, go back to the school and shoot the damn thing up.
Right.
That's what keeps, my kids' school, their high schools had like 2 or 3 of these, warnings or notes of concern and things of that nature. That has nothing to do with whether or not there's an SRO there. So you want to know what makes me afraid? That my kid's school is going to become the next Marjorie Stoneman Douglas or Robb Elementary in Uvalde. That's what concerns me as a parent. Not that there's whether or not there's a cop in the hallway hanging out. So, you really want to go there, school mom? Yeah, let's talk about the real issue, not whether or not there's an SRO there. Okay.
I'm gonna ask you a question and now we're gonna get silly and have to sign off. What if that SRO is wearing women's underwear? What if that SRO is expressing his feminine side underneath, and perhaps has some, has some gender identity issues. What will Joe the plumber mom do then? I assume greatly disapprove, but then it's an SRO, so that's a good thing, right? So yeah. I'm confused.
Or reading the wrong book, So
what if they're reading Mouse 2 while they're doing their thing? Steve, the possibilities abound.
Well, Bill, on that note, I don't even want to look at the possibilities. I just want to note to our listeners and our viewers that you are rocking the Philadelphia Phillies top there. Congratulations to the Phillies. Look, this was a number 6 seed. I know they were the last National League team to get in. They may have been the last team, period, that got into playoffs. Number 6 seed, took out some 100-win ball clubs. Well, not the Cardinals, but I believe the Braves were in that range. And then, hey, gave a good fight to the Houston Astros. So congrats to the Phils. Congrats to the Astros who, cheating or not cheating, we can get into that silliness, might be the best dynasty, regardless of number of titles we've seen since the late 90s Yankees. I mean, if you look from 17 to now, they've won over 600. They're batting over 600 in terms of percentage of games won. And they're young. They're going to be around for a while. So congrats to the World Series champs. Congrats to the Fighting Phils. They made a hell of a run. I've got my Orioles shirt on, so shout out to Trey Mancini, who is going to get a ring. So that's wonderful for Trey. Who knows? He'll be a free agent. Maybe he comes back to Baltimore with said World Series ring. But, crazy playoffs, especially the National League, absolutely insane. A juggernaut Dodgers team, Padres, the Phillies. The Phillies win the National League. So hell of a run, boys.
The Phillies only won 4 more games than the Orioles this year. And the Orioles, I believe, won 4 out of 6 from the Astros. It could be our turn next.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, this ends our turn. Bad segues continue. And we will look forward with bated breath to the results as they come in. Hopefully by next week, we will know who all the winners and losers are, although that's likely we will not. And we will be coming back at you with another great edition of Forward Maryland. Steve, any last words?
No, sir. Just good stuff. We'll see what happens Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. Especially here in Maryland, if the primary is any indication of what the general election looks like, yeah, there are going to be some races. We may be, if we're going to have an election that wraps up if we're going to have a podcast that wraps up the election, we might be a few weeks before our next show.
Well, we'll have to talk about future shows and in the coming weeks. So we do not have anything planned for you out there in viewer and listener land, but we will.
Get out and vote. Get out and
vote. Definitely vote. If you have not voted yet, damn it, do it.
Yep.
For Steve Hunt, my name is Bill Woodcock. You have been watching or listening to another edition of Forward Maryland. Have a great Sunday, everybody. Take care.